Okay, here we go. And let me just wait for things to kick in. And I got to do a couple other quick things here. Let's see. All right. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Are we live over on the YouTube? You guys know there's a little lull. Here we go. Rockfin, I think we're coming at you. Looks like we're good on the Rockfin, I think. I hope. Yeah, we're good on the Rockfin. And are we? Yes, and we're good on the YouTube. What's up, everybody? Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. You know it's Monday, so things are going to be a little weird this week. So let me just start there. Um, if you didn't see the tweet that I posted or the update that I posted over on the YouTube, let me tell you what's going on this week and why it's going to be a little weird. So there is some happenings going on at my apartment. There's a pipe issue that should be good, but fingers crossed. But there's a pipe issue going on in my apartment, and also there's a scheduled outage for Wednesday. I guess like everything's happening all at once. So I knew that yesterday, and what I decided to do this week because you know, like I said in my tweet, for anyone who saw it or didn't see it, I said things are going to be a bit touch and go this week, and streams might not happen at their regular time, but I'll be as close to the regular scheduled time as I possibly can. I'm just kind of rolling with the punches this week. So what I decided to do was not schedule any guests. And the reason for that was because, if something goes down and a stream can't happen because of, the apartment issues, I wanted to make sure I wasn't also screwing over a guest. Like I didn't want to schedule a guest where it's like, hey, come do my show, which by the way, might not be able to happen, or we might need to switch the time last minute. You get the idea. So today's show is just going to be me, and tomorrow's show will likely be the same. And then Wednesday is the scheduled outage. So on Wednesday, there's not going to be a show. The outage is supposed to not be for very long, but they don't know for sure because those things, I guess it always varies. So I'm just gonna say no show Wednesday. Like no Get Your News Up with Ron on Wednesday, and then we'll just be back the following week. And this week is going to be a little strange. Tomorrow, hopefully, the stream is just at the regular time, but it's just going to be me. And today, the stream is almost at. I mean, we're about it's almost 11:30 Pacific time here. Our regular time is 11, so we're not too far off from the regular time. But that's what's going on this week. So it's going to be a little weird, a little goofy, but there's some stuff I want to talk about. So I wanted to kind of maneuver around it instead of just canceling the show for the week. So that's what I'm doing, and I hope you all still enjoy things, even though it's just me talking to myself, kind of. I used to mostly do shows solo. Then I decided, it's way better when I have someone to talk to, especially in these quarantine times. Really, quarantine really switched the format for this show because I felt so isolated. The idea of having social interactions during this show quite appealed to me, So anyway, that's what's going on. So things will be a little different this week, but I appreciate your time and your understanding and your time. I appreciate you tuning in. And, so let's start with something a little fun that happened over the weekend. Over this weekend, it was National Pets Day. And shout out to my editor, Joe, who put this together for National Pets Day, and for my co-host, Lucy. Check this out. This is a compilation of Joe's favorite Lucy moments. Boom, here it goes. She likes the co-hosting gig, apparently. I don't know what to tell you. Look at how pale I am. I'm wow. For everyone listening to this on the podcast later, you can't see this video. You can just hear me talking to Lucy. But Lucy is in front of the microphone, being cool and adorable, and I am even more pale than usual. I'm surprised the camera picked me up. Really. I'm surprised. The camera was like, we have a ghost mode. There's, you know what? The camera was on such a pale mode that it actually, when it picked me up, it actually called ghost hunters. It was like, we got one. We got a spirit. Come take a photo of it. You might get an orb. And then they show up. They're like, oh, that's actually a person. That's actually a person. All right. Anyway, let's watch the wonderful compilation that Joe put together, or listen to the wonderful compilation that Joe put together.
She just jumped up on here.
You can hear her purring. Isn't that awesome?
Started. Oh, look who's here. There she is. Look up. She's made. You're going to chill right there. She's like just outside of the camera. Look, you can see her tail. That's seriously where you want to sit? Why don't you sit like right near the microphone? No? You want to sit on the other side? No? No, you can just chill there. Like on the other side of the microphone. Like, I want to talk on this side. You want to get in the camera? You want to get in the camera? There you go. Yeah, you get it. She's just like totally stoic here, right in front of the microphone. Here, come here. I gotta read. Come here, sweetie. What? Whoa! Check it out, the cat. Lucy, what are you doing? Hi. What's up, Justine? What's up, Over the World Trucker? Officials in Florida that are.
It's a really old video.
Really? All right.
With the loss of net neutrality. This is largely because my cat just jumps up whenever she feels like it.
Hi, everybody. Ron Placone here. Well, what is it about that area that fascinates you?
Lucy, what are your thoughts? What are you most concerned about? Oh, there it is. She's like, I want my treat. That's what I'm most concerned about. Everyone's excited to see you. Especially me. I'm like, oh, she wants to chill? That's awesome. I got my co-host back. She left over contract issues. She's like, not enough treats. I'm out. And I'm like, look, you're only supposed to have one a day. That's what the vet said. It's not a reflection of your talent. The vet said no more than one a day. It's bad for you, but it's good for your teeth. We do one a day. She's like, I want more. I'm like, well, I can't. And she's like, I'm not going. I'm like, all right. I guess maybe she's cool with the contract now. I'm Lucy. Hi. But she loves you guys. Lucy, you're the best. You're the best, Lucy. I love you very much. She's a very sweet cat. Lucy, she says meow. And she says, I'm going to get my cat hair all over you. I hope you don't mind. And I'm saying, I don't mind, Lucy. You're awesome. But Lucy says meow. And I say peace. Peace. Isn't that great? Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much for this. It made my day. It warmed my heart. Shout out to Joe, the editor here at Get Your News On with Ron. And you can follow him on Twitter at Joseph Cicada. That's at Joseph Cicada. And thank you so much for doing that, Joe. And to everybody out there, happy belated, because it was over the weekend, but happy belated National Pets Day. One of those things to give us something to smile about. It's a brutal world out there, and we know it. But our pets certainly help us through it, and that's the case for me. Lucy she's been working overtime during this pandemic. Because between my wife and myself, somebody is always home. So shout out to all of our pets who have definitely been working overtime during this pandemic. And it's amazing all the joy and love that they give us. And Lucy is asleep on the couch, appreciating her thought out. So her shout out. So happy belated National Pets Day. I wanted to share that. Hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you for that, Joe. So let's get to what's happening over at Amazon. That's what I wanted to talk about a good bit. So unfortunately, the union vote was not successful. The workers did not win, and the union was voted down. Here's one of the headlines from it. This one's from Democracy Now! Alabama Amazon warehouse organizers lose union vote. But here's what's happening. They're planning a legal challenge. So let's take a look at the headline here. In labor news, the months-long campaign to create the first ever union at a U.S. Amazon warehouse ended with the majority of workers voting no. 738 workers at Amazon's Bessemer, Alabama warehouse voted to unionize, while more than twice that number voted against. But the battle isn't over. So here's what's happening. The Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union, That's the union that led the drive. Now, they're saying that Amazon illegally interfered with the vote, and it plans to file unfair labor practice charges with the National Labor Relations Board. Activists and progressive leaders, including Senator Bernie Sanders, praised the organizers who they say will inspire similar actions at workplaces around the country. So what are they referring to? They're saying that that Amazon illegally interfered in this election, which, they do have the burden of proof. They do need to prove that. So let's see what has surfaced so far. Here is a video that we're going to go through from More Perfect Union. Here's what they tweeted. They say, breaking, More Perfect Union has obtained new details about Amazon's illegal actions to defeat the unions. The violations make it overwhelmingly likely that the NLRB will overturn the results and give workers a second election. So they're saying that basically this election... sorry. Here, hold on. I'm going to start it at the beginning for you all. But they're saying that the election was not fair. They're saying that Amazon interfered in a way that basically crossed the line. Because, there's certain things that Amazon can do that, unfortunately, they can't do anything about that. Like, Amazon can just do that, and there's nothing that workers wanting to unionize can do about it other than spread their message. And we're going to go through this video and kind of talk about the points that they bring up. But this is a video from the More Perfect Union, who is saying that the election was not fair, that Amazon interfered in an illegal way, and that they're going to have to redo this thing. So let's see what's going on here.
Something suspicious happened in the middle of Amazon's union election in Bessemer, Alabama. For most of the 2-month election, mail ballots trickled in each day to the National Labor Relations Board, a few dozen at a time. But all of a sudden, on February 12, a huge batch of 251 ballots arrived at the NLRB office in Birmingham. The pace of incoming ballots went back to normal. But then, it happened again. On February 17, according to people with knowledge of the election, another huge cluster of ballots appeared at the NLRB, 350 in total, on one day. Sources say these dumps of ballots were overwhelmingly no votes against the union. What was going on here? The answer appears to be a serious attempt by Amazon to manipulate the results of the union election. So serious that it appears very likely that the National Labor Relations Board will overturn the results. And in that event, should the Retail Workers Union demand it, the NLRB could call for the election to be rerun. Why did so many no votes, roughly 20% of all votes cast, suddenly appear on 2 key dates in February? According to the RWDSU, the only plausible explanation for the vote dumps is that they were the ballots collected from the mailbox that Amazon illegally installed in the middle of the night on the campus of the Bessemer warehouse.
On the second night after ballots went out in the mail, we started getting calls from workers that said, like, oh my God, they put this box up here and they're telling everybody to put their ballots in it, and we're scared. We don't want to put our ballots in there. Like, who has the keys to the box? Does Amazon have them?
More Perfect Union obtained Postal Service documents about the Amazon mailbox. For no apparent reason, much of the text is redacted. But the documents show that Amazon wanted a ballot box installed as quickly as possible. And the documents discuss how to physically manipulate the box to allow for mass ballot collection.
As you can imagine, that can open it up to a lot of coercion, a lot of intimidation on the part of the employer, compelling or forcing employees to come and use the ballot box that they've installed at their location.
This mailbox, which Amazon installed in violation of explicit guidance from the federal government, is key to understanding how Amazon illegally coerced workers and manipulated the results of the election.
We've received reports of intimidation and coercion. We've seen communications where they've essentially threatened that there would be a layoff because of the union. And that's what would be considered a hallmark violation of the act.
The union election was set to begin on February 8, but Amazon had been hard at work for weeks prior to that, putting in place a systemic, coordinated effort to engineer the outcome it wanted. Amazon hired a union-busting consulting firm, Labor Information Services, to create classes that workers were forced to attend. Workers were subjected to mandatory anti-union meetings, sometimes 2 to 3 times per week.
So the entire month of January, you went to one every week. Some people went to more than one a week. They'd say stuff to you like, everything's on the table when you negotiate with a union. We could take everything away. You could lose your pay, your benefits.
Some of those who shared with me on breaks is that they're afraid because Amazon told them in the meeting, the union buster said that if you get the union, then your benefits will be taken away. And so some of the younger people are kind of confused and have been told that the union is a bad thing.
When workers asked pro-union questions, managers came back to scan their badges in an apparent effort to document pro-union workers.
I asked like 3 questions to make them tell the truth.
Yeah.
When I got back to work, the PA came to me. I saw her pass everybody, and she came to me and she said, "Let me see your badge." She said, "Because when they scanned it in the class, yours didn't go through." So she scanned my badge and I watched her. She never scanned anybody else's badge because I was the one that brought out the question that will make them tell the truth about the raises or the union dues and stuff like that.
So, all right, so let's stop it here. We're about midway through this thing. So they're claiming that the mailbox that was installed went against some of the guidelines that were put forth, that this mailbox shouldn't have been installed, and that the mailbox was used kind of as an intimidation tactic. Maybe it was kind of just right out there in the middle of the campus. Workers were worried, I guess, that they would be kind of seen and people would know how they're voting. And then other things Amazon was doing to intimidate the people voting was during these meetings, they would take down the information of people who asked questions if they were asking pro-union questions. And to my understanding, now I'm not a labor attorney, okay? I'm not a labor attorney. But to my understanding, that's where lines are being crossed. When you engage in these kind of intimidation practices, that's where you are crossing a line, and there could be consequences where they might have to redo this election. As far as some of the other stuff they brought up, I think, Amazon hiring an anti-union consulting firm, there's really nothing stopping Amazon from doing that. Unfortunately, I mean, it's morally wrong, of course. But if Amazon wants to make their employees go to these meetings where you hear a bunch of anti-union rhetoric, they can do that. If they want to hire a third-party consulting firm that's blatantly anti-union, which they did, well, unfortunately, I mean, they can do that. I mean, it sucks they're able to do that. From a moral standpoint, it's absolutely appalling. But, when you're fighting for a union, that's just one of the things you have to fight against. So to my understanding of this so far, all those things that Amazon did as far as making people go to these meetings, hiring an anti-union consulting firm, they can do that. But when they take it a step further and they start intimidating people with pro-union questions, they start taking their information, they start placing these boxes in a way to intimidate the people voting, that's when you're crossing a line, and that's kind of where the case is. But let's keep watching this because there's still more to this.
Election began. The classes were mandated by law to end, but Amazon transitioned to a new phase of its campaign. It compelled Jefferson County to change the traffic light signals outside the Bessemer warehouse to rob the union of one of its most effective messaging tactics, speaking to workers at red lights as they headed into the office warehouse.
No way! Are you kidding? Jeff Bezos is a real-life comic book villain, okay? I mean, I know. G-Rod, tell us something we don't know. They changed the traffic lights. Wow. I mean, it's enough that there's nothing from stopping Amazon from shoving their anti-union rhetoric down their employees' throats. There's nothing from stopping them from doing that. They have way more money than their workers have. They have way more power. They have every single advantage. They can dangle people's jobs in front of them. They can take advantage of people working paycheck to paycheck and say, hey, you might lose everything if you go for this union. Rhetoric-wise, there's not much stopping them. The only thing that they can't do is blatantly intimidate people and try to intimidate them to vote a certain way. And at least allow them to communicate their side of things. And Amazon even put a hold to that, to the point where they changed traffic lights. I've watched some of this. I haven't watched all of it. So this is my first time seeing the traffic light part. But you guys get what they did there. They changed traffic lights so that people on the side of the union, workers who wanted to unionize, couldn't pass out their literature there to other people coming to work. They couldn't get that face-to-face interaction. They changed the traffic lights to do that. Did you ever wonder, like, what if they just would treat workers? I mean, think about all the money Amazon spends to do this. Think about all the money. They hire this consulting firm. They make employees attend these anti-union propaganda campaigns, which is what they are. That's what. Think about all the money they're spending doing that. All the time that these workers are spending in these anti-union meetings, that's productivity that Amazon is losing. And I'm not saying this to, rah-rah capital. I'm saying this because this is just hateful at this point. Amazon, like this doesn't even make sense from the bean counter capitalist perspective. Amazon just hates their workers that much. They just hate their workers that much that they'd rather spend money and resources to prevent having their lives get better. This is capitalism, baby. This is capitalism. All right, so let's watch the rest of this. I think at this point, it's safe to say lines were crossed. This goes far beyond, okay, they just had some anti-union rhetoric. Well, they're allowed to do that. There's nothing you could do about that, unfortunately. Oh, and they hired this consulting firm. Well, they could do that. There's nothing you can do about that. Companies do that all the time. Walmart does it. Amazon does it. But when they go as far as to intimidate the people, then they're crossing a line. All right, so let's see.
Meanwhile, Amazon pummeled workers with anti-union messaging via text messages, Twitch ads, and notes on bathroom stalls and break rooms. Do it without dues, Amazon propaganda explained.
Every time we go to the bathroom in your stall, in the men's bathroom, as soon as you go to the stall, you got an anti-union flyer right there in front of you. You got flyers in the break room. You got when you walking in and walking out, you got big banners saying early vote, vote no.
When the election began on February 8th, Amazon deployed a concerted misinformation campaign targeted at its employees.
We've seen Amazon try to confuse people by telling them they needed to vote by March 1st, even though the deadline was March 29th. And the reason for that was to try to get people to cast their ballots right after the captive audience meetings and before they've had an opportunity to engage with the union.
Amazon felt if workers could be forced to vote quickly, they were likely to vote no. And once they voted no, they were not allowed to go back and change their vote. That's where the mailbox strategy came into play. If Amazon wanted workers to vote early, they needed a way to coerce and compel them to submit their ballots.
Not only have I never seen a company install or have a mailbox installed on their property for purposes of mail ballot election, I've never even heard of a company asking for such a thing.
Amazon initially asked the National Labor Relations Board if they could install a ballot drop box in the warehouse. The request was denied.
When the request was denied.
So they did something they weren't supposed to do. This went against the election guidelines that were set forth. So this mailbox was set in a certain place. It was meant to intimidate workers. It was meant to get them to vote as early as possible. And this was kind of against the agreed upon rules. Amazon did it anyway.
Went ahead and just disregarded what the board had said to them and installed it themselves. It's the first time I've seen it. And in fact, when I've talked to some of my management side friends on the other side, they're all flabbergasted by what really is pretty audacious on the part of Amazon.
On the second night of the vote, February 9th, the mailbox suddenly appeared, just steps from the entrance to the warehouse.
For workers, it's twofold. It's number one, if I'm a pro-union supporter and I'm putting my ballot in this box, is Amazon going to know that? Are they going to track it? Are they going to steal it? What's going to happen to my ballot once it gets here? And for those that maybe necessarily wouldn't have voted, maybe they were just kind of impartial to the idea and want to support their co-workers, but they also don't know a lot about the union. But now they've got this manager that's saying, hey, I've noticed you haven't voted yet. You didn't bring your ballot to the box. You should bring it tomorrow. Bring it and put it in the box.
The reason why you wouldn't want to have effectively have a polling place where the employer at the employer's facility without the supervision of the board is that the employer's supervisors will go around to these employees and say, you need to bring your ballot in, you need to make sure you vote, and you'll have employees following their supervisor's instructions, bringing in their ballots to work, which they're not supposed to do, and feeling the pressure that they have to cast a ballot for the employer. And that's what the mailbox being installed at an employer's facility and to be used for the purposes of casting ballots creates this pressure on employees.
As the NLRB counted votes, Amazon deployed the last phase of its anti-union strategy. It challenged hundreds of ballots, specific ballots that were cast after March 1. Amazon was well aware that by March 1, the tide had swung in the union's favor in a major way.
And there should be no intimidation, no coercion, no threats, no anti-union propaganda.
Knowing that many of the post-March 1 votes were likely yes votes for the union, Amazon's lawyers aggressively challenged them. Amazon won by engaging in exactly the kind of coercion and intimidation that President Biden warned of.
Under Section 7 of the National Labor Relations Act, employees are guaranteed the right to decide the question of whether they want to organize or not in an environment free of coercion and intimidation.
We haven't heard the last from the courageous workers who took on Goliath. If the NLRB grants a new election, they'll be back, and it's likely they will have the votes to win.
All right. Well, interesting summary, huh? So again, and this is, I'm not a labor attorney, but the way I see it, some of the things they're bringing up are things that, yes, Amazon can do. They're allowed to make their employees attend meetings, as far as I know, that they can require meetings where they give their anti-union side of it. And they can, unfortunately, use all the anti-union propaganda that they want. They can hire that outside consulting firm like they did. And they can, and even the stuff like in the bathroom stalls and stuff like that, it's obnoxious, sure. But I don't really think there's anything you could do to stop Amazon from doing something like that. Where the lines were crossed is when you go into that realm of coercion, as they pointed out, and intimidation. Now, where is that line? Of course, that line's blurry. It's not, a black and white thing. It's a very gray area. But I think it's safe to say that line is crossed if somebody has a question and you take down their info. You get in their face. You take down their info if they're asking a pro-union question versus an anti-union question. I think that line is crossed when you mislead your workers about when the deadline to turn in the ballots is, and you try to get them in sooner. I think that line is crossed when you say, we want to have our own mailbox and we want it to be in prominent display. And they agree that, no, that's kind of intimidating workers. You can't do that. And then Amazon does it anyway. And as that one attorney pointed out, something like that's never happened before. So you have these powerful people telling the workers, hey, turn in your ballot, and turn it in right here, and turn it in by this date. And it's a date earlier than they have to turn it in. And they have to turn it in plain sight. There's probably employees who were scared they're going to turn in their ballot. Someone's going to notice. They're going to go see what that ballot says. And they're going to go see how that worker voted. And unfortunately, there aren't a lot of worker protections. It's very ironic that there's not a lot of worker protections because there's no union. So it makes it that much more difficult to try to get a union. Because guess what? If your supervisor or someone more powerful finds out you voted for the union and they didn't want you to, they can make your life miserable. And there's not much you can do about it, unfortunately. So I think it's safe to say when you factor in everything here that, yeah, this was not a fair election, that Amazon intimidated their workers in a way that was illegal, that they crossed a line on several different occasions. They can have their anti-union rhetoric. Oh yeah, and the other thing they did, changing the frickin' traffic lights. I think that's where the line was crossed. Changing the traffic lights so that the workers don't even have a chance to disseminate their information, intimidating people during the question session, intimidating people through the use of this mailbox. And yes, it's peculiar that all of these no votes randomly appeared on 2 different days. Is there foul play there? Well, I have no idea one way or another. They would need the burden of proof there. You know, if you're going to say that some foul play happened there, well, you have to prove it. And as of the recording of this, there's been no proof one way or the other there. But it's certainly peculiar, and the mailbox in general shouldn't have happened. They agreed it wasn't going to be a thing. Amazon did it anyway. So there are multiple occasions here where I think it's safe to say Amazon crossed the line. And I think if you get a labor attorney that knows their stuff, which it sounds like they do based on the video we just watched, they should be able to determine that, yeah, this election was not fair and they should redo it. Will they? Tough to say. Tough to say. But I am of the opinion that they should. I am of the opinion. And yeah, hey, guess what? I'm definitely biased. I'm pro-worker. I'm definitely pro-worker, 110%. I'm anti-Amazon, 110%. But, and I'm not a labor attorney. So all those disclaimers right there. I'm a comedian on YouTube who's pro-worker. But I think it's safe to say, objectively, because again, there's some things that happened in that video that they pointed out that even though it's morally disgusting, there's nothing from stopping Amazon from doing it. And you can't just say, well, the election wasn't fair. Well, unfortunately, Amazon's allowed to use the resources they have to spread their anti-union message. There's nothing stopping them from doing that. So they can do that. But they summarized enough things where I would say it's safe to say lines were crossed. Lines were crossed. So they should redo it. They should straight up redo it. We'll see if that happens. Will it? Won't it? Tough to say. I mean, this tweet came out a couple hours ago today. Or no, wait, excuse me. I'm sorry. This tweet was over the weekend. This video came out over the weekend. But this is the first weekday. The first weekday that they're addressing this. So I think it's, if they redo this thing, it'll probably take a little while. It's not like that's something they're just going to be like, all right, you're right, redo it, vote today. There'll be a process. There'll be a review process, and you're going to hear from both sides. You're going to hear from the labor board. You're going to hear from the labor attorneys, and you're going to hear from the PR stooges over at Amazon, which are a bunch of people who got marketing degrees and decided they're fine to use their power for evil. They're fine with that. They're fine with that. And you know what? It's going big picture here in the United States. And just for the record, I don't begrudge any worker for how they voted. I'm not going to fault any worker who voted no, because we all know what's really happening here. What's really happening is these people are overworked. They are underpaid. And many of them are probably living paycheck to paycheck, if not all of them. And on a weekly basis, they get propaganda shoved down their throats saying, hey, you vote for this union, you might lose everything. You might lose everything. And then Amazon goes a step further. It's not enough that they can just shove their anti-union propaganda down people's throats as often as they want. And they have this big high-level consulting firm helping them do it, when all the workers have are their fellow workers who are trying to get the message out, who are trying to combat decades and decades of anti-union propaganda, which we've seen in the United States. It's bad enough that Amazon can't just accept the fact that they have every advantage and at least play somewhat fair. I mean, it's not fair, but it's like at least not illegal. But they can't even do that. They have to go the extra mile and intimidate and coerce people and do things that they agreed they wouldn't do, that they're going to do it anyway to intimidate people. Amazon has to go that extra mile. They have to go that extra mile and can't even be. So hopefully they get another shot at this. Hopefully they do. And here in the United States, going big picture, we have this because of years and years of conditioning. And we're talking going back to probably since the 40s, really. We have this odd mindset in the United States where your job is some kind of charitable thing for you, where you should be so happy you have this job. And you should be so happy that and you're just going to be stuck with nothing if you complain. And that is bullshit. You shouldn't be happy to have your employer. Your employer should be happy to have you. We live under capitalism in the United States in its most brutal form, although all capitalism is in its most brutal form because that's what capitalism is. It's just at times there are a little more checks and balances than others. But capitalism is just brutal in general. But when you live in a capitalistic society, nobody's just creating a job out of the goodness of their heart. At least not something like an Amazon or a Walmart. They're not just creating a job because they feel like it. They're creating a job because they need it. They need that labor. They need what you, the worker, produce. They need it. So they should be happy to have you, not the other way around. And you should be compensated fairly and justly, which means you get a living wage, decent benefits. And then for the most part, everybody wins. They get the labor that they need. You have a decent job. The world keeps spinning. But no, because of the greed of these corporations, they can't have that. That's not enough for them. They need to exploit you because you're a commodity to them. You're a widget. You're just a pawn to be used. You're not a human being who is entering an exchange with them. You're a widget. You're a tool. You're disposable. That's the attitude of the corporatocracy. And we're supposed to just accept that as normal. We're supposed to accept that as normal, and we're supposed to battle each other for these crumbs. And it's horseshit. It's absolute horseshit. Your job is not a charity case. Your job is needed. And if you and everyone else say, no, we ain't doing it, we're shutting it down. Jeff Bezos feels that in his frickin' pocketbook. The Walmart family feels that in their frickin' pocketbook. Target feels it in their pocketbook. They all feel it in their pocketbook. We need a general strike. We needed it yesterday. And I hope that Amazon I hope that the folks in Bessemer, Alabama get another shot at this. Because I think it's safe to say Amazon crossed several lines multiple times. And this election was not fair. It was not fair. All right. So there you go. We'll keep an eye on this as it unfolds. We will keep an eye on it as it unfolds. Will they get another chance? I certainly hope so. Why did I go into a random commercial radio voice there for a split second? So we're done talking about labor exploiting human beings in the late stage capitalistic gangbang that the United States is in. Whoa! Don't forget to call now and a chance to get a coupon for Rory's Gentlemen's Club. I don't know. Oh, anyway, folks, for anyone tuning in late, show's going to be a little weird this week because I'm dealing with some issues at my apartment, and as a result of that, there will not be a show on Wednesday, and I'm probably not going to have guests. Well, obviously, I didn't have a guest today. I'm probably not going to have a guest tomorrow either. It's going to be a weird week. And because of those issues that I'm dealing with, I didn't want to schedule a guest and then have to cancel on them last minute. So we're going to hopefully be at our regular time tomorrow, which is 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. If we're not, I will tweet and I will update the YouTube community and I will post on Facebook and I will try to get the word out the best I can as quickly as I can. But we got to take it basically just one hour at a time this week. It's everything will be totally back to normal next week, but this week's just going to be a little weird. So happy Music Monday, everybody, and to everyone out there pushing for a union, whether it's at Amazon or anywhere else, we're with you. Solidarity, and to everyone out in Bessemer, hopefully you get another shot at this one. And in the meantime, y'all know the drill. Lucy, she says meow, and I say peace. Peace.